Hey there, welcome to this week's episode of Next Level Play Therapy. And today we are going to tackle the question of how do you decide whether or not you're going to include parents in the play therapy session. So raise your virtual hand if you have ever had this happen. You walk out to the lobby, your little client looks at you with just eager eyes, with excitement, and says to you, "Can my mom or dad come?" Meaning, can they come into the playroom too? And so you're kind of looking at that. I mean, in your head, you have to make a split-second decision of what you're going to say and how are you going to answer that question. What I find is a lot of play therapists will just say yes, or they'll just say no. But most of the times I find they say yes because their client looks so cute and they don't want to say no. Plus, somewhere in the back of their head, they're like, oh, I don't want to upset parents, or I want to make sure parents feel like play therapy is working, excuse me, and it matters. So you end up saying yes more times than not. And then what happens is the session is kind of awkward. You're not sure what to do in there. Parents aren't sure what to do in there. And so you kind of end up wishing you hadn't said yes and feeling like maybe you're not doing such a good job with your client. And the reality is that's probably not true. It probably means there's a couple of things that you need to do to figure out how to respond to that question moving forward. And that is what we're going to talk about today. And today, I want to make today more of a practical application. So, if you're watching on the live stream and you have a pen and paper handy, then pull those out. Or maybe you're watching the live stream replay here on LinkedIn or over on YouTube, or maybe in my Facebook group because we post the replays in there. Meta won't let me go live in my Facebook group anymore. That's just annoys me. But anyways, we figured out a workaround. And I also, if you're watching live here on Instagram or the replay, then I would advise you go ahead and pull out a piece of paper, a pen, or a pencil. We're play therapists, so if you want to pull out some colored markers, feel free. Because this is going to be kind of a practical application. And then for those of you listening on the podcast, if you're driving around, maybe later when you have a chance, go back and listen to the podcast and maybe answer some of these questions as well. Just to get a good sense, because I was really thinking today's episode would be kind of like a workshop experience to give you a little opportunity to think some of these through and really get some practical applications for what you want to do. So I'm going to talk through a couple of things. Working with parents is a whole bigger spectrum of things, which is why I created a really comprehensive online course, which I'll talk a little bit at the end if you want some more support working with parents. I will be talking about that a little bit later. For today, though, I wanted to give you some practical opportunities to figure a couple of things out for yourself. So I'm going to share 3 tips to think about when considering how you're going to involve parents in the play therapy process. So today's episode is how do play therapists decide when to include parents in play therapy sessions. The first thing you need to think about is what is the purpose of parents in the play therapy process? What is the purpose of having parents in those play therapy sessions? And so you really need to be clear with yourself first about this, if you want to take a little more deeper dive into this one, the two previous episodes, live stream episode replays are available, and the two previous podcast episodes, you may want to go back and listen to those and kind of think some things through a little bit. For today, what I want you to do right now, and you can, if you're watching the replay or listening to the podcast, you can pause it and think about it if you want. If you're following along with the live stream episode, then pull out your paper and pencil or colored markers if you want to. So the first thing to think about is write down at least 2 reasons you think parents are important in their child's treatment. Write down at least 2 reasons. You can write down more if you want, but I really want you to think about what are your beliefs about the role of parents in their child's play therapy treatment. Because what ends up happening is if you make decisions, but you're not if you make decisions about how you're going to include parents, but you're not really clear about their role and your beliefs about the role of parents, then you're not going to be able to articulate as well as you want to parents, and then you're going to feel like you came across sounding like you don't know what you're talking about. Your insecurities will kick in, and you will just kind of verbally inside your head mentally beat yourself up a little bit. So we're trying to avoid that by really getting clear first on what are your beliefs about the role of parents in the play therapy process. So write down at least 2 to 3 reasons for that. Secondly, write down if you believe individual play therapy sessions are better, meaning you get a better outcome for your clients if you just do individual play therapy sessions. Excuse me. Excuse me. I got a little tickle in my throat. I'll have some water. Whew. I hate when you get those tickles in your throat because then you're like, oh, I can't talk. Which is what I have going on right now. All right. Got my water ready. If I need to take some more drinks, I will. So write down your beliefs, and you're just doing it with yourself. So get really honest with yourself about this. Really honest about what do you believe about individual play therapy sessions rather than having parents in the play therapy sessions, and under what circumstances would it be beneficial to have parents in the play therapy session. So you want to get really honest with yourself, and here's what you want to get honest about. Why do you do play therapy sessions over including parents? Like, what's the reason you're doing individual play therapy sessions rather than including parents actually in the session? And what does that look like? If you include parents in there, what exactly is that? Like, how do you do that? And why do you do that? So what I want you to get really clear with yourself about is, do you just do individual because everybody else does individual? Do you just do individual play therapy sessions because the thought of having parents in the play therapy session is terrifying and you don't know what to do? Do you do it because the Association for Play Therapy says and you learned in graduate school, and maybe your supervisor said the child is the client, so you can only do individual because that otherwise you're not really supporting your client. If the client is the if the child is the client, does that what does that mean? I think it can mean a few things, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And I have talked about that in previous play therapy sessions. I'll be talking about that a little bit. I mean, in previous play therapy live streams and the podcast. And I'll be talking about that more in the weeks to come. But but for today, when you're listening to this or you're watching this, really think about what you believe about individual play therapy sessions, and are those better than having parents in the session, and why is that? And if you included parents, under what circumstances would you include parents? The reason that I want you to think about these and get really, really clear with yourself about your expectations for parents and how they're going to be participating is it's going to help you answer the question of whether or not you're going to say yes or no when your client looks at you with their cute little face and says, "Can my mom or dad come in today? Can my mom or can my mom or dad come in our play therapy session today?" Because without that clear purpose, then you're not going to know if you invite parents to join you under those circumstances, or maybe parents are looking at you like, "Why can't I be in the session? Why do you only meet with my client?" Like in the back of your head, you're wondering, well, what do they think I'm doing in there? But they don't know. I mean, they don't know. You're the play therapist and they don't know how it works. Or maybe a pediatrician or another therapist told them it's supposed to be a certain way. So they're kind of going by that because they trust those other professionals who don't really know much about play therapy. That so you can hear my dog. Those of you who are probably watching or listening, you can probably hear my dog Luna. Luna is greeting our neighbors who may or may not be in the yard. She's been, oh my goodness, she has been barking up a storm lately. But I don't think she's barking at anybody, but she's letting them know just in case. But anyways, you can probably hear my dog Luna in the background. She's been on a barking bender today, this morning. All right, so back on track. So that's what you want to do for step 1. The second thing to think about is, what does your play therapy model say? Because your play therapy model is going to influence the decisions that you make about the role of parents. So here's what I want you to do for step 2. Write down what play therapy model you use, and then write down at least 2 to 3 reasons that you align with that specific play therapy model. And if you're not using one of the what the Association for Play Therapy would call seminal and historical models, like maybe you use a few of them and more integrated, then write down in your integrative model what play therapy models are you integrating in, or what theoretical models are you integrating in, and why? What is it that you align with about those models? write that down. And so you can pause the video if you're watching the replay, or you can pause your podcast if you're listening to the podcast. Um, if you're joining live and you're writing them down, I'm trying to talk a little bit more, so you have an opportunity to write those down and to think about it, but also kind of stretch your thinking a little bit about that. So here's the reason that I'm suggesting to write down 2 to 3 reasons that you align with your play therapy model. One is because we don't really think about it. Like, why do I align with this model? Why am I using this model? Which is then going to match up with, what are your values about providing play therapy? What are your belief systems about providing play therapy? And then those are going to influence the decisions that you make, the clinical decisions that you make about how parents are going to be involved. Because first, your play therapy model is going to influence or dictate how parents are involved, or if they're involved in the play therapy sessions. So what does your play therapy model say about that? What does your play therapy model say about the role of parents in those play therapy sessions? What does your model say about family play therapy sessions? Do you invite parents and do you invite siblings in the play therapy sessions? Or maybe you do sibling only sessions. What does your play therapy model say about all of that, and why? Why does your play therapy model say that? Here's the thing, when you can get clear about these questions, then you are going to be able to be more clear and articulate, communicate more effectively to parents and to kids about whether or not parents are included in the play therapy session, as well as how they're included in the play therapy sessions. So if you want to be able to feel like more confident about articulating and communicating, which is basically the same word, those could be a little different. Sorry, in my head, I'm like, are they the same word? It's busy inside my brain most of the time. Anyways, back on track. So if you want to be able to communicate and feel more confident doing that, and laying out the reasons for your recommendations or the way in which you provide play therapy, then getting really clear on these questions, that is going to help you to do that. So the third thing to think about is, first thing is you have identified your beliefs and values around parents and their role in the play therapy sessions, under what circumstances you think you would involve parents in the play therapy session. You got real clear about your values and beliefs about aligning with a specific model of therapy that you use, maybe a play therapy model. So you've kind of identified your values and beliefs and your reasons. You've gotten honest with yourself about that. The third step is, now what do you do, right? So if you're going to include parents, how are you going to include them? And this is where your case conceptualization comes in really handy, because in order to figure out what to do, you have to figure out what's actually going on. That's your case conceptualization. You're doing your clinical detective work to figure out what is at the root of the problem that your client is experiencing. and how specifically are they impacted by whatever is going on. That also includes what is the role of parents. I would include the role of family in that presenting issue. What are the patterns and the dynamics going on, and how are those influencing or impacting the the root of the problem that your client is experiencing? So you're looking at maybe some things that might be contributing or sustaining the problem. You're also looking for things that are helping to create like a safe haven for your client. These are the resiliency factors, because that's going to play a role as well, right? Like in TheraPlay, if you're using a TheraPlay model, you're having the child and the parent in the session. Could be for a couple of reasons. One, the attachment relationship is contributing. Some of the insecure attachment patterns might be contributing to the presenting problem, but you also might be having your doing TheraPlay because the client can really use support from their parent in order to work through and feel more confident, feel safer to address whatever it is that's going on. In the past, I've had clients who have experienced um, trauma, like sexual abuse that's happened to them, and they were able to do some work in the individual play therapy sessions with me. Where they really thrived was when we included parents, even siblings, in the play therapy session. These were their safe people. The person who had uh, perpetrated the sexual abuse was not in the session. That's a whole other way of going about it. I'm not saying they can't be, but there's a whole protocol and process that needs to happen for that. I'm talking about like part of the healing that goes on for the client, but also for the family and also for the parent. So you're conceptualizing what is at the root of the problem your client is experiencing, and what are the patterns happening in their environment, in their life, with within their family, with parents, with siblings, maybe if it's a 3-generational household, other family, extended family members living in the household. What are the dynamics in that system? What are those dynamics between the child and the parent that are influencing, perpetuating the problem, and or will be a source of resiliency and safety? So if you're figuring out how to include parents in the play therapy session, your case conceptualization will help you to figure out how to include them. It will help you figure out how you're going to answer the question of how am I including parents in the play therapy question. And then that's going to help you figure out, when your client asks you, hey, can my parent come and join us today? It's going to help you also answer that question, because just because clients ask to include for parents to join the session, or they ask if their siblings can come in. I've had that happen as well. How many of you have had that happen, where your client says, hey, can my sibling come in? Or I get this one too, like, my friend is visiting, can my friend come in? How do you answer that question? I usually say no, for a lot of reasons. For that one, like my friend, that one's usually no, that one's always been, I don't think I've ever answered yes to that question. Anyway, your case conceptualization is going to help you figure out how parents are going to be involved, what you're going to do in the sessions, when you're going to do it. That's also going to be influenced by your play therapy model. And at the core of it, all of these are influenced by your beliefs about what is the best way to go about providing play therapy. Is it individual play therapy? And what are your expectations and beliefs about parents' role? So, when you are thinking about the question of how, let's do a little practical application right now because we're workshopping this a little bit. So think about one of your clients, whatever client comes to mind right now. If I were you, this is me, I would probably choose one of my hard ones. So I can have a minute to really think things through, but whatever works for you. Just think about one of your clients and go back and think about when you did your initial assessment, your initial psychosocial assessment, your initial clinical assessment, whatever you call it, that time where you took to ask a bunch of questions, to find out a bunch of information that's going to help you figure out and start your initial case conceptualization. So, as part of that initial case conceptualization that you did, what did you assess about the parent-child dynamic or maybe the family patterns? And think 3 generational. Let's go generational here. So what did you assess about those dynamics and the role of those dynamics in sustaining or contributing to the problem, as well as what were the dynamics that are maybe a resiliency or a safety factor? Those are going to be like probably secure attachment patterns that you might have noticed. So think about those. Write that down. Write down what you observed or what you assessed to be some of those parent-child dynamics and maybe some family dynamics, or maybe that, think of it 3 generational. Take a minute. This one, you might need a little bit more time, but take a minute to think about those dynamics and how they might be contributing, and or how those might be like resiliency factors. Write all of that down. And then when you're done, you have it all down and you're getting like, you're writing it down. It's just you. So you can take some risks and just write down. Don't filter yourself about whether or not you think you're right or wrong. Just write it down, because you can go back later and think that through a little bit more, like, oh, I don't know if I never even thought about that. Or I'm not sure about that one. You can filter that out, but write it all down. And then as soon as you have it all written down, think about what that says. And based on your beliefs about play therapy and who's a client and how to do it, and our individual play therapy sessions better than family play therapy sessions. What is your play therapy model? Now you're taking your case conceptualization into consideration, and how do you think parents need to be involved? Now that you've kind of gone through all of those steps, how do you think parents need to be involved in the play therapy treatment process? What is that going to look like? So write all of that down. So, and then you can think that through and see how that helps you with your decision making about parents. So hopefully this episode has been helpful for you today. If you feel like it's been helpful, please feel free to share the information with a colleague. If you're watching on YouTube, then go ahead and hit that subscribe and notification bell so you get notified every time. I'd love to hear your thoughts about what what came up for you and what you kind of decided through this, or some thoughts or questions that you have. So feel free to post a comment. I would love to hear from you. Feel free to message me, do a private message. If you're watching on LinkedIn, or if you're watching in my Facebook group, or if you're watching here on Instagram, go ahead and send me a message. If you're watching on YouTube, then go ahead and post a comment. Or if you're listening on the podcast or watching on YouTube, pop over to my Instagram channel at Renewing Hearts Training. Send me a message. I would love to hear from you. So let me just do a little recap for today. So today, what we talked about is first getting clear on your expectations about how you're going to provide play therapy. And then what does that mean about how you are thinking about the role of parents in the play therapy process? Because when your client asks you, can my mom or dad come in, or can my brother or my sister come in the session today, then this is going to help you know how to give an intentional answer that's going to move the needle, so to speak, on progress for your clients in play therapy. Then the second thing you want to do, now that you kind of have decided what's the purpose, what's the role of parents, now you're thinking about, what does your play therapy model say? Because your play therapy model is really going to influence. Oh my goodness, Luna is losing her mind. Luna, come here. Lou, come here. Oh, she is winding up a storm. I don't know what's going on with her. Anyway, so the second thing, what does your play therapy model say about the role of parents and how they're going to be integrated in the play therapy model? And you will have written down 2 to 3 reasons why you align with the models that you're using. And then what does that model say about family play therapy, or parents in the sessions? And when you figure out why you align with it, that's also going to help you figure out some of your beliefs around the role of parents in the play therapy process. And then the third thing is, now that you've figured those 2 things out, then how are you going to involve parents in the play therapy process? Your case conceptualization is going to influence that as well. And then that's going to help you figure out how. If you decide parents are going to be included in the session and your play therapy model aligns with having them in the session, then you're thinking about, how are you going to do that? So that is it for today. I did want to tell you, so today we covered like kind of going over expectations and kind of figuring out the question of what you're going to do and how you're going to do it when it comes to involving parents, or maybe even involving family members in there. The thing is, if you're finding that you need a little bit more help about, like, how are you conceptualizing, if you really align with using a neuroscience and attachment theoretical lens, and you want to know what that would look like when you're working with parents, and how you're conceptualizing parents, and how are you in play therapy, and how are you using that information to guide what you're doing and how you're doing it, especially when you're working with challenging parents, challenging situations, challenging family systems, then I have a course. It's an on-demand course, so you can take it anytime. I made it really comprehensive to walk you through all the things, so that by the time you finish the course, you are going to feel a lot more confident about your decision making, working with parents, and how you are including parents in that play therapy process. So the course is called Getting Grounded, Partnering with Parents in Play Therapy. There's a couple of modules in there that really walk you through how to work with challenging family systems, laying the foundation first with like a neuroscience and attachment lens and some practical things that you need to think about. And then how do you do that with parents that have a few more challenges working with them in the family system in a way that's going to get them engaged, where that you actually help them partner with you, that you can be that therapeutic change agent to for parents as to help them be involved in a way that will sustain lifelong healing and process and progress. To me, that's the key, is how do we do that? How do we engage? How do we support parents who have a lot of challenges? So that is it for today. If you're interested in the course, Getting Grounded, Partnering with Parents in Play Therapy, it is going to be available until Saturday. There's also a $40 discount on the course. I am going to be taking the course down from my website on Saturday at the end of the day. So on Sunday, that Getting Grounded, Partnering with Parents in Play Therapy is coming down. It's not going to be available. And it also has a $40 discount. It's back to school time, so I figured your caseloads are going to be filling up pretty soon. And I thought, well, what better way to help you get the school year started off on a good foot than providing a really comprehensive course to support the work that you're doing. This is a big struggle. I heard a therapist tell me last week. Somebody I was just talking to in passing was saying, "Yeah, I like working with kids, but I just don't like working with parents." And in my head, I thought, well, that's because you probably haven't been trained to know how to support parents. And parents can be a huge asset if you can get them engaged. And sometimes that's a little challenging to do that. And then um, we end up saying, I wish I could just work with the child and not the parent. And I that makes me sad because I know how much change can happen when play therapists start feeling more confident about how to work with parents, what to do, when to do it, things to think about using a neuroscience and attachment, kind of that interpersonal neurobiology lens, co-regulation, thinking about polyvagal theory and how that influences dynamics within the parent-child relationship, and all the things, right? All the things, mentalization. That to me, that's a big one. And so the course is available till the end of the week. It's coming down Saturday at midnight Pacific time. It's available now. Getting Grounded, Partnering with Parents in Play Therapy. Pop over to my website and check it out. My website is rhplaytherapytraining.com. That's rhplaytherapytraining.com. Renewing Hearts Play Therapy Training. It's available today. We'll also post links in the comments so you can check it out. If you have questions about it, feel free to message me. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. And I will see you next week. Bye for now.